In this episode of American Greed, he's a successful insurance broker. She's a vice president at a leading financial firm.
I mean, she was making close to $250,000 a year. They were living large.
Tina and Joe Caronna lived the good life with a nice house and a collection of classic cars.
Tina and I, we did everything together. She loved cars, she loved football.
But Joe has one very dark secret. He's stealing money from clients to finance their fun.
He preyed on people that were friends and family. He didn't prey on strangers. There was nobody he would not steal money from.
How far will Joe Caronna go to keep his sins a secret?
I started crying and I said, I don't want to believe this. Please tell me he didn't do this to her. I don't want to believe it.
Saturday, October 25th, 2008. Just outside Memphis, Tennessee, in the quiet suburb of Olive Branch. Shortly after 7 o'clock in the evening, Carrie Brown, a trucking company manager, receives an alarming phone call. It's Joe Caronna, the husband of her close friend, Tina Caronna. He sounds worried.
He just called somewhat panicky and just said, have you talked to Tina today? And I'm like, no. Has she called you today? No, Joe, what's going on?
Caronna explains that he last saw Tina around 10 o'clock that morning when she left home in her black Chevy Avalanche. She planned to run errands in preparation for a party later that evening. But she never came home, Caronna says, and she isn't answering her phone.
Well, I went into a straight panic because that's not like her, especially not to answer phone calls from him.
Tina Caronna is a 44-year-old financial executive and president of the Memphis Corvette Club. She is so well loved that friends and family immediately form a search party that very night.
They were thinking somebody had abducted her, so I just went looking for that black Avalanche. It was like a massive manhunt for Tina.
The mystery of Tina Caronna's disappearance would eventually reveal a sordid financial fraud scheme and murder plot. But just how did Tina and Joe Caronna, by all appearances a happy and successful couple, become entangled in this twisted tale? It's a story that begins decades earlier.
I don't know anybody that didn't love Tina. She was the kind of person that you had no choice but to love her, really.
Carrie Brown meets Tina in kindergarten. The two women stay tight through high school and college, and even get their first jobs together as tellers at a local bank.
Customers that adored her would wait until she got back from lunch until she helped them. She's just that kind of person. She was magnetic.
Although she does not have a degree in business or finance, Tina's infectious personality and strong work ethic propel her up the corporate ladder. Within a few years, she's working for the brokerage firm Payne Weber.
She could talk a heating blanket from an Eskimo. She could sell anything. She could make every customer that walked in there happy.
In early 1993, Tina meets her match in the charm department. One afternoon, while out shopping, Tina is swept off her feet by a smooth-talking shoe salesman.
She was like, you're not going to believe this, but I just met somebody at the shoe carnival, and we're going out.
Joe Caronna is a manager at the store.
He knew all the right buttons to push with Tina. Lots of attention, flowers all the time, gifts all the time, really winning her over.
Less than a year after meeting, the two are married. But shortly after the wedding, Tina pushes her new husband for a career change. She thinks he can do better than slinging shoes.
So that's when she came to her dad and said, will you take Joe in and train him the insurance business?
Tina's dad, Jim Murphy, is an independent insurance agent. He's eager to teach his new son-in-law the ropes. Two of Joe Caronna's earliest clients are his elderly neighbors, Lake and Helen Sturdivant. Their son, David, remembers when Caronna first came to call on them.
He would come over to my parents' house and practice his sales pitch on them. Have a live somebody to tell about the product he was selling.
Because they adore Tina, the Sturdivants are willing to take a chance with her new husband. They agree to let Joe open up an annuity for them.
They thought it was a safe deal, and I think they thought they'd be helping out Tina by investing with them.
An annuity is a financial product that is often used to create a future revenue stream in retirement.
When you buy an annuity, you're buying an investment and you're expecting your money to grow in value, and it's really considered a safe investment. There's not a lot of risk involved with an annuity.
Memphis, Tennessee, home of the legendary Beale Street, where 7 days a week there's always a party going on. And by 2006, the good times are rolling for Joe and Tina Caronna. That year, Tina takes an executive job with the financial firm Cantor Fitzgerald. As a vice president in the loan department, she's paid nearly $250,000 a year, according to her good friend, Carrie Brown.
Everyone knew that she was successful and was doing well, but she would never take the credit for all that. She'd be like, oh, Joe's done so well, you know, in the insurance business. He's doing so well.
But she's being far too humble. Most of Joe's clients are Tina's friends. She often accompanies her husband on sales calls.
Anybody that knew Tina would go with them, but that was his bread and butter, people who trusted Tina, therefore they could trust Joe.
With years of experience under his belt, Joe now works out of his own office and away from the watchful eye of his father-in-law. Carrie Brown eventually becomes one of his clients. She purchases a life insurance policy through Joe and considers opening up a $20,000 annuity with him as well.
I said, you know, I've got some money invested in an annuity. It just would make more sense if I put it with someone that I know. So why don't I move my money to you? And Tina was like, it's a great idea. Of course you can move your money to Joe.
But rather than make a phone call and transfer money over to the life insurance company, Joe curiously tells Carrie to make out a check to his business.
He said, just call your broker and tell him that you want a check in full made out to you. You'll sign that check over to me, and then I will invest it with Allianz in the same type of annuity.
Carrie doesn't think twice about the transaction. Joe is the husband of her good friend, Tina.
Complete 100% trust. She was involved. I mean, she was there. She helped sell it.
With his insurance business thriving, Joe picks up a new hobby, collecting classic cars. Within a few years, Joe buys a 1971 Chevelle, a 1969 Daytona yellow Corvette, and a couple of Porsches.
He liked to be seen in them. He was very proud of his cars.
Joe becomes so enamored of his cars that he and Tina join the exclusive Memphis Corvette Club. It's a defining moment, says Tina's younger brother, Scott Murphy.
Joe was all about the appearance of what you had. He was looking to hang out with the people that were in a different class that he felt like had money.
Joe and Tina moved to a bigger house in Cordova, a quiet town in the eastern suburbs of Memphis. The couple are high rollers at the casinos in Tunica, Mississippi, where Joe plays fast and loose with their cash.
Joe loved to gamble. Joe and Tina both went to the casinos a lot.
She hit 10 grand one time, and she was like, it's so much fun. I mean, we're addicted, you know, because we're winning all this money.
But what Tina doesn't yet realize is that, like any addiction, there can be hell to pay. Joe is losing a ton of money. It's not uncommon for him to drop several $1,000s playing blackjack and high-end slots.
He won money, but not enough to cover what he was losing. At one point, I think he was down $90,000.
In Memphis, Joe and Tina Caronna appear to have the perfect marriage. But what Tina doesn't know is that their lifestyle is propped up by fraud. Joe's been pocketing his clients' money for years, says Shelby County Assistant DA Danielle McCullum.
Tina made good money, but I guess that wasn't enough, and he wanted more cars or a bigger house or to go gamble more.
Since 2001, Joe's been stealing money from several clients. He makes it look easy. When Joe sells an annuity to a customer, he often encourages them to write the check directly to him.
The check many times will be made payable to Caronna Investments, and Joe would deposit that money to his account, and he would never forward that money to the insurance company.
Some checks went to the insurance companies, some checks went to him. He was very good at what he was doing, so he would mix it up.
Caronna's first ever client, Lake Sturdivant, remains his favorite mark.
My dad loved Joe to death. Joe was telling him about all this interest that he was making. And when they would come into some money, most of the time would invest it with Joe.
Unfortunately, Lake rarely asks Joe for any paperwork. It's a mistake made by several of Joe's clients, including Carrie Brown, who has a $20,000 annuity with Joe.
I never got one statement, ever. At the time, the market was not doing well, so I didn't want to look at it.
When clients do press Joe on the subject, he often whips up a fake document.
The amount of time he spent defrauding these people is ridiculous. He would go through and change the amounts. He would retype parts and then repaste that on top and then photocopy it.
Remarkably, while Joe is plundering their friends and family, Tina Caronna, vice president of a financial firm, has no idea of the fraud happening right under her nose.
Joe was very controlling of a lot of things in a relationship, but especially the money. He did handle all of the finances.
She said, I don't even realize what I make because it goes into a direct deposit into the account, and Joe gave her allowance. If she needed money, Joe gave her the money.
In June 2007, tragedy strikes Tina's family, and Joe's greed reaches new depths. One night after Jim Murphy attends a classic car show, the 65-year-old dies in his sleep.
She called me about 5 o'clock in the morning, and she was absolutely beside, just, Carrie, Daddy died, Carrie, Daddy died.
While his wife grieves, Joe turns his attention to his father-in-law's car collection. It includes a 1963 Cadillac, a Bentley, and several others, worth more than $100,000.
He came to me and said, your mom's got 6, 7, 8 cars out there that your dad had, and they're not doing anything but losing value, but I'll be glad to help you guys sell it.
He preyed on people that were friends and family.
They would have killed anyone within a 10 to 15-foot radius.
It just was devastating.
Please tell me he didn't do this to her.
Oh my God. You bag! You ruined my life!
They were living way beyond their means.
I'd lived a rather fast and furious life.
It's back.
There was no end to his greed.
An all-new season of American Greed at 9, followed by the premiere of Money Talks at 10, March 19th on CNBC.